asked if you had read the indictment. You said you read it word for word, page for page, right?
I did. I keep up. I love Jackson.
Even though they've not been in court and they've not been found guilty, it's just an indictment.
They don't see it. My first statement was, think about your family. Think about your family. Put your family first.
I never thought in a million years we would have been put in the situation that we were in. Never. Because we went through our whole career doing the right thing.
It's utterly ridiculous to me. Utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. To tonight's edition of the Othor Cain Show. I'm Othor Cain, glad to have you aboard on a Tuesday evening. We've got a very good show ahead for you, so you don't want to miss a second of it. As always, we are grateful. We are appreciative of all of your support. This independent journalism supporting Black media, it is more important today than ever before, with so many people transitioning, like those of Lester Holt, who's going from the largest platform or the largest stage at NBC News to a crime-regulated show called Dateline. How do you walk away from that platform? So supporting Black media is more important today than ever before. Also, as we've talked about on this broadcast before, firing Joy Reid. Man, come on. We've got to support Black media, and I am grateful. I am appreciative of everything that you do in terms of support. We don't take it for granted. The Cash App is running across your screen. Got to let you know that tonight's show is being sponsored by Socrates Garrett, who is seeking the office of mayor. Let's take a look. In just a little bit, we'll have a conversation with Socrates Garrett, who is seeking the office of mayor. You don't want to miss that. A very candid, upfront conversation. And like the number one question, why are you doing this? We'll get to all of that in just a moment. First, though, I do want to quickly offer some additional thoughts about the forum on last night. Here's what I would tell you, and I've said this many times before, entirely too many people running for mayor to have a real in-depth conversation, right? Too many people. And that's why here on this program, we're only bringing you what I am billing as the top 5 to have a real in-depth conversation. But as we continue the thoughts from last night, so thank you for a very active feed last night. We are at about 6,000 views just from last night. But let me add this thought. I know that there are several additional forums that are being planned, right? At least 3 more. I'm most excited about the one that will happen on Thursday, March the 20th at Forest Hill High School. This is a forum where young people are leading the way. This young man, who is a senior at Murrah High School, is a rock star, Javion Shedd. He is an absolute rock star, and he is working hard to put this forum together. And so this forum is Thursday, March the 20th at 10 a.m. at Forest Hill High School. And so if you are able to get to Forest Hill High School, I would encourage you to do that, because you get to hear from young people. Far too often, the voices of our youth in this city are not elevated, right? They're not elevated, they're not recognized, but these kids have voices, and they are producing this forum on Thursday, March the 20th at 10 a.m. at Forest Hill High School. all youth led, all youth engagement. And I can't wait to be in the audience and watch these kids really share what's important to them and how they should be included in the progression of Jackson. Outside of that forum, here's what I would say. I don't think that, so traditionally over the last, 15, 20 years, the mayor's race has been decided in the Democratic primary, right? Last 15, 20 years, the mayor's race has been decided in the Democratic primary. Going forward, I don't think a forum needs to include a Republican candidate nor an independent candidate. It's a colossal waste of time in my mind. And again, it prevents us from getting to the heart of what really matters. To hear a question at a forum last night about the Jackson Zoo is utterly ridiculous. It's just a waste of time. You know, that ship has sailed. We want to do something with that property in West Jackson. Absolutely. That whole Capitol Street corridor, something needs to be done. But to pause in the middle of an election and talk about the Jackson Zoo, I think is a colossal waste of time. Those are my additional thoughts from last night. And of course, at the end of the broadcast today, we'll bring you a new feature. We'll give you what's on Othor's mind. That's coming up at our closing break. Right now, though, we turn to our guest. Our guest tonight is businessman Socrates Garrett, who is vying for the top seat in Jackson. He wants to become your next mayor. Please welcome to the broadcast, Socrates Garrett.
Hello.
Garrett, good evening to you, sir.
I'm well, and you?
I am doing well. Thank you for being here, man. Thank you for sponsoring this broadcast tonight. We appreciate all of your contributions to the city. And I just want to get right into our conversation tonight. And I guess, honestly, I will start with, because you seem to have signed up a little late to seek the office of mayor. So I guess I will start tonight with, why are you doing this?
Well, yeah, I did sign up a little late, just probably hours before the mayor signed up. And I'm doing this, and the struggle was, family support. The families asked the same questions. They said, why are you doing this? You have been tremendously successful and you've done well. So why would you take on this challenge and this task at this time? And they were not in favor of me doing that. But as always, I listened very carefully to what everyone had to say, and I looked at the conditions of our community, and I looked at the list of candidates that was in the race, and I had seen some earlier polls earlier on, and I decided that nothing was really going to change. I decided that it looked to me as if the traditional politicians were going to have a great opportunity to be reelected and selected to be in this position, and therefore we would have no change. And so I remembered someone said, you have to be the change that you want to see. Mm-hmm. I know that I have the skill set. I know that I have the resume. I know that I have the ability to unite people. And so I said, it's time for me to get in this race to see if I can make a difference. Jackson's been extremely good to me. It's time for me to give back to Jackson.
I'm glad you said that. That's a great transition into my next question, Sock. Jackson has been good to you. Yeah. You've done extremely well in Jackson. You've hired a lot of people in Jackson. Heretofore, prior to deciding to run, how else have you given back to the city?
Well, we've been involved in probably a greater way, in my opinion, than anyone else in this race. When you hire as many people as I have, we've hired thousands of people in the last 35 years or so. And when you look at that, we hired people that others would not dare trust with heavy equipment. When you send a young man that is coming out of a rehab center, or that a young man that had trouble, etc., and you're trusting him with a tractor and trailers with 80,000 pounds behind his head, when he goes off of that yard, you're putting a tremendous amount of faith in that. But I knew that they had the skill set and then one just needed the opportunity to be restored. So I think that my true strength in giving back to the community, besides all of the traditional things like buying all of the basketball shoes for the Brinkley basketball team and sending kids to various places and supporting Kenny Stokes parades for 30 years and things of that nature, traditional stuff, 100 Black men involvement, etc. I think that I gave back more because I've trained more of our folks' children and I've worked with them. I don't go anywhere someone doesn't say to me, Socrates, you know, I work for you. And they don't call me Socrates either. They say, Mr. Garrett, I work for you. You know, you trained me very well, etc. So I think that's been my real gift to the community, to try to be a stand-up guy for 35, 40 years. Everybody who's been in trap, I've come through all of those traps. I did not succumb to any of them. And so I understood that it was critically important. You know, Othor, one of the things I like most about President Barack Obama is that he was scandal-free, that he was scandal-free, and he elevated the image of Black folk in this country.
I totally agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. I know firsthand of your involvement, you know, from the traditional point of view in terms of helping Kenny Stokes and all those things, young people. So I know firsthand of that. I also know firsthand of your ability to hire. You know, full disclosure, I was at the Mississippi Link when it was under your leadership, even before the transition to Jackie Hampton being the publisher there. So I know firsthand of your involvement there. I want to ask you.
I would say I know she's listening, so I think you better add that she's the publisher and the owner of the.
That's all inclusive for me. But you're absolutely right. Publisher / owner. You're absolutely right.
Female, it's a female. Yeah,
that's
female
right. Still
owner.
have my hair, man. Still have my hair. But listen, Ms. Garrett, you've been involved in so many campaigns, right? You've worked to get other people elected, and so now you're standing in those same shoes that those previous candidates stood in. Are you receiving the same kind of support?
Well, it's interesting. Things have changed. We have a new type of individual that's involved in politics. They're more theatrical. They are more of the kind of individuals that are in your face kind of folk today. Back when we started out with Mayor Harvey Johnson in 1995, I believe, it was a different environment. And so I received a lot of support, not from past politicians or current elected officials, but I receive a lot of support from blue collar, from folk that I work with every day, from truck drivers, mechanics, and these people are where I get the bulk of my support from. That's where I get my money from too.
That's good stuff. A nickel a dime here and a nickel a dime there. That's good stuff. Let's talk about, honestly, where do you see Jackson in 5 years?
Well, I see Jackson as a potential to become a destination, but we got to do some really hard work. And I remind everybody that one man can make a tremendous difference. If he can unite the council and unite the Hinds County delegation and present a united front to the state of Mississippi and the world, then we can move quickly to get some things done. So in 5 years, I'd like to see Jackson as become a destination. I'd like to have an entertainment center here that runs from the Jackson Medical Mall all the way out to the zoo. I'd like to have a new housing development at Lake Hyco and new homes out there in that area. I would like to have a concept where we shared responsibilities with our sister cities, like a regional sales tax that brings us into revenue. I'd like to grow the rooftops and the number of businesses in this city. I think that we can get a handle on crime and domestic violence in this city. Once we eliminate some of this poverty and this pain that's in this city, I think we'll begin to get a handle on that, and Jackson will blossom. You know, we're blessed with I-20 and I-55 in the intersections. We ought to be a transportation hub of the South. We're 200 miles away from everywhere you want to go, 200 miles from Mobile, Shreveport, Birmingham, Memphis, Tennessee. We are a center. We're located geographically in a garden spot. We just have to develop that. I like to see a casino on the Pearl River. You know, when I was in Oklahoma City, they pumped water downtown Oklahoma so they could have a riverboat atmosphere. We're sitting here with the mighty Pearl River, and we got to develop that river. All civilization flourished on the banks of the river, and Jackson can too. And so I like to see that happen for us. I like to go back and take some business that's unfinished. I like to reallocate some of these dollars from the 1% sales tax and make sure they're being applied in South Jackson and West Jackson and other areas. Too much of those funds are going into Ward 7 and Ward 1 in the Fondren area. While I agree that the business improvement district over there is working, I don't want to restrict that at all, but we have some bottom-up theories that I want to deploy. We got to go where the people are hurting and raise that up.
So let me ask you this, and this came to me as you was answering this last question. So places like Belhaven, places like Fondren, where you have private and public dollars at work, right? How can, say, Westland Plaza become the Fondren of the African American community? What would it take for that to happen?
It would take some collective vision from all of our bodies that we control. You know, Dr. Henderson said you have to control the environment that you're in. Over $1 billion flow through the hands of African American in 4 economic engines: Hinds County, the City of Jackson, Jackson Public Schools, and the Airport Authority. Over $1 billion is flowing through there, and yet I don't see any African American owned business that are selling toilet paper, no trucks running on the street like we had years ago when we had Sudden Supply sales, we had Capital Supply sales, we had K&S Chemicals. I want to get back to that. And so we have the opportunity and the ability and the funds to make this happen, Othor. We just got to have a collective vision. We can only grow in one direction. We can't grow east because Flowood is there. We can't grow north, Ridgeland and Madison got that covered. We can't grow to the west because Clinton is sitting there. The only place we can grow is south, down Highway 18 and the Highway 80 corridor. So what would it take to make that happen? Investors would have to know that we have a business-friendly city and that we're going to invest in them to come into this city. We have the tax credits available to us. We just need to advertise the land that we have, the environment that we have, and we'll encourage investors to come and do all of the things we do in Fondren. You see, when Hinds County put $17 million in the parking garage over there to help the Watkins team build a parking garage, $17 million of Hinds County money in that project, but no money into the Metro Center Mall or the Western Plaza area, no money there. And that's failed leadership, and that's the lack of vision. When the current mayor abandoned the medical mall, the Metro Center, when he abandoned that, that shows the lack of vision because that's an area that he cannot afford to abandon. When Jackson Water came in, the first thing that he wanted to do was move out of that area. That's the lack of vision and support and move into Pearl. Those kind of things cannot be allowed nor tolerated with effective leadership. So once we let the business community know, one of the things that I want to do initially on is take control over the permit department, take control over zoning, and see exactly how we're going to plan our way through this quagmire we in, and the developers will come. They will come because they want to make money.
Listen, I want you to address this comment that's on the screen now, since we're on this conversation about businesses. And I also want to ask, how do you stop that? How do you put Jackson on the right trajectory for growth? But I want to address this comment from JP Young. Jackson has areas within the city limits that can bring commerce. You have predatory businesses opening in the poverty-stricken communities. That's the issue. What are your thoughts there?
Well, clearly we have too much of that. There's titles for cash, these payday lenders, these pawn shops. All of these predator businesses are operating in the poor community. We pay more for a hamburger in Jackson, Mississippi than you pay in Madison County for one. And that's because of these taxes that we pay. So those businesses have to be monitored, because not only are they predator in our community, but it also creates the crime atmosphere when you can come in and sell a watch or sell a gold chain or buy a gun in the community. That has to be regulated. Not only that, I'm looking at my entertainment district, and I'm looking at everything business-wise and see where it belongs. You know, we have an area down there on McDowell Road that's dealing with strip clubs and things of that nature. And I'm pro-business, so I'm going to support businesses, but they cannot be the kinds of activities that are going to drain the wealth out of our community and take it somewhere else. They're going to have to invest in Jackson.
Ms. Garrett, so tell me about what skill sets do you have that will retain and attract these businesses to Jackson?
Well, the first thing you got to do in business now, I was past chairman of the Greater Jackson Chamber Partnership. That's a 2,300 member organization. 90%, 98% of those are white CEOs. You have to understand what it is they want to happen. You know, when I watched The Godfather long years ago, the man said something that I had to stop and think about. He said, I'm moving my business to Cuba. And he said, the reason I'm going to do that, there's nothing more important to businesses than friendly government. Now, what do we mean by that? We don't mean that by taking bribes and being corrupt. We mean that by providing things like tax avoidance for a while. You don't pay any property tax for this first 5 years. We talk about, you know, how we can help you by building out our infrastructure. You know, we put $23 million in the ground to help Nissan come. That's being friendly to business. We put $50 million in the Toyota plant. That's friendly to business. But we didn't put anything in our industrial park to attract these businesses. So we will be extremely friendly to businesses as they come into Jackson. Nothing for Socrates Garrett. I've made my money. I'm good. Nothing for me. Now it's time for me to build a strong business class. And when you get my age, you are dying to teach and share young business people what you've learned over the years. I want to take my experience and my knowledge and put it in a 40-year-old's head and see where he can go in life or where she can go in life.
All right, very good. I want to go back to JP Young's follow-up question. Investors, as yourself, know that three things matter when one invests: commerce, education, and safety. A true paradigm shift has to happen for true investors to come in and take the chance. Your thoughts there?
Yeah, he's absolutely right. I mean, those are known requirements for businesses to move into an education, into an environment. You know, CEOs are not going to move in the environment if they think you have poor schools, if they think there's a lot of crime in that environment. So those things we got to work on. We got to address the things that businesses require in order to attract them. And so he is absolutely right. But what we can fix those things. Again, we have the desired geography, we have the climate, we have a labor force. Everything that's surviving in Jackson is feeding off of Jackson's population. And so we have to turn that inward and we have to create that environment. Now, how am I going to do that? Well, one, you know, I want to introduce into this marketplace a plan to deal with these young juveniles that are committing crimes. But I want to deal with it differently. I want to have a conversation with all single moms. I want to understand what their challenge is, because one of the things my granddaughter said to me is that men are being restored by women, but no one is restoring women. We don't have anybody that's working to restore women. And yet they are the ones with these young teenagers out here that they need help with. So we got to figure that out. We got to say to them to come to the table. Let's talk about where these boys are. Let's talk about what their needs are. And we got to provide them with opportunity. We got to put a Job Corps Center in here to train them. We got to make absolutely certain that every contract that comes through here has a job requirements for training our young folk. We got to make that part of the landscape in Jackson. We're going to keep Jackson's money in Jackson and train Jackson people and eliminate this poverty. We are a poor city. And where you have poverty, you have high crime. The state of Mississippi is a highly corrupt state because of its poverty. So we got to address that. And I'm going to start with that with single moms and these young teenage boys. We're going to get a fix on what they need. Marcus Wallace says often, he says, we got to take the guns out of their hands and replace it with tools. And he is absolutely right. That's his slogan. That's what he stands for. And I agree with him wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I heard him say that last night. That was really good. I got to tell you, though, education is another reason that this state is at poverty levels. But specifically in Jackson, I think that Dr. Eric Green and his team, they've done an amazing job of pulling Jackson public schools back up to good standards, right? At this juncture, no new charter schools can come into the city of Jackson, right? Because we are now a strong C district. I think had we not had this last infraction, we could be a B. I wonder your thoughts on what the relationship should be between the mayor's office and the Jackson Public Schools District. When I go to places like Little Rock and I go to places like Baton Rouge, I go to places like Memphis, there's a strong relationship between municipal government and the city's school district. What should ours be?
Although the mayor has to have the ability to unite folk. Now, when I go into other cities, I see that the utility companies there are very, very involved in the community. So I know you're talking to me about education, and I'm going to get to that. But we got to have strong partners with everybody that's in Jackson, that's doing business in Jackson, that it has an economic footprint here. That includes Entity, that includes Atmos, that includes all of the utilities that are here in Jackson. And so I got to sit with those CEOs and share with them what Jackson requires of them and then listen to what they require. The mayor appoints every board member for the airport authority, for the Jackson Public School Board. He also appoints the JRA board. He also appoints to the Central Mississippi Planning and Development Board. So he's got tremendous influence. He and the school superintendent ought to be in lockstep. They ought to be in lockstep for two reasons. One, because they have a shared vision of what the value of education is and what it means to the city's growth. And two, they ought to be in lockstep because the mayor has the ability to change the school board out, which changes the school superintendent out if they're not in a lockstep, in a vision. So this office of the mayor is tremendously powerful, and it must show that kind of leadership. He should be meeting regularly with the school superintendent. He should be meeting regularly with the president of the Hinds County Board of Supervisors. He should be meeting regularly with the chairman of the airport authority. All of that should be a quarterly meeting that they sit and talk about progress and successes and failures and make things work.
All right, but I want you to drill down just a little bit, though, more specifically on the educational component, because I will say this mayor has done a great job in appointing school board members, right? This school board is really committed to the district, really committed to the success of our scholars. So he's done a great job with that. But I want you to drill down on the school district itself and the scholars and uplifting them. And what should be the role of the mayor? In my mind, I'm thinking some kind of office with some kind of liaison between the city and the school district, to your point, so that they could be, or can be rather, in lockstep and in sync with providing good outcomes for these scholars. So can you drill down on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, as I said, they have to meet regularly. They have to meet at least once a quarter. See, it has to be a voluntary shared vision, though, because power concedes nothing to anyone else, and people are threatened when you bring them to an environment where they're not in charge or in control. So you got to have a shared vision with them, and then you got to sit down with them and say, how are we going to plan our way through these things? So drilling down in it, I have to know why Jackson Public Schools is resizing. I have to understand, that we had 5 years ago, we had 32,000 students. Now we have 15,000 students. I have to understand the impact and the challenge that's putting on this district. And I have to help provide those resources other than the millage increase that the superintendent asks for every year, which the city really can't vote on. All it can do is approve it. And so we really have to understand what his challenges are.
Right.
Police officers in Jackson, vagrancies, teenage boys and girls. When we decide to say that we're going to focus on South Jackson, and I've said this on many occasions, that the 160 to 260 officers that that Jackson Police Department is budgeted for, I want to focus on South Jackson with that force, but not to put more teenage boys and girls over the back of trunks of cars and over the hoods. Every time I see that, it hurts my heart, because I remember too many things about yesterday about that. But to say to them that I want you in these school districts, I want you to walk the hallways. I want to teach. I want you to let that teacher know that you're there to support her. And if those kids see an authority figure often, doesn't have to say anything. If they just feel the presence, it'll change the environment and it'll improve the learning experience for our children. So I want to do creative things like that, working with the school district superintendent, not saying that we're going to police your school district. I know he's got his own police force, but it's got to be shared vision. Barack Obama said, Othor, that I have to have the ability to see things through your eyes. I got to see it the way you're seeing it.
Right.
If I'm going to be able to collaborate, if we're going to forge a relationship, if we're going to unify, it's got to be a shared vision.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with the shared vision. The only other caveat that I will offer in terms of the reduced size of the district, that plays into the charter schools coming into the district, that plays into Jackson having fewer rooftops, that plays into parents just deciding to send their kids to other districts as well. So I agree with you 100% on a shared vision and on the need to fully understand. And so I think that Dr. Green and his team make the right decision, because when you go from 32,000 students to roughly 17,500, 18,000, and you're operating, 60-some buildings and they're half empty, it was smart to close some of those buildings down. But I want to get to real quickly your thoughts on crime, and then I want to get to a rapid round of questions. So everybody talks about crime. I think crime is just a sexy conversation, if you would. But realistically, we understand that we're operating a police department and with fewer officers on the streets. I think that Chief Wade is doing a great job bringing people back into the department with experience. But I want to get your thoughts on juvenile crime specifically. How do we get a handle on that?
Well, we first of all got to take and apply our resources properly. When we say 260 officers in JPD, but we also have 200 officers or so in Capitol Police, and we have another 300 officers in the Hinds County Sheriff Department. So when you take a look at what's operating in Hinds County, we have more than enough police officers to get this job done. So crime is being addressed. I was opposed to Capitol Police because I did not like the chief of police reporting to an unelected body in the city of Jackson. I was opposed to that, but I have to give them kudos that they have made an impact in crime. So I remember when Macmillan was both the police chief and the sheriff, he made a difference in crime. So I want to get a handle on it by saying to these police officers, all three agencies are under one umbrella with one command center where they're talking to each other every day. They're looking at the same cameras every day, but they're not running over each other from one side of Jackson to the next side of Jackson. We got to focus in those areas and do more than react to crime. We have to be proactive. We have to be there. We got to light this city up. We got to work with our convenience stores. We got to work with businesses in that area, and we can get a handle on crime. How do we make Jackson State a safer environment? By lighting that area up, eliminating the blight, bringing business and shops in there like we have in Fondren. When you walk in Fondren on Thursday night, people are everywhere all over the street.
Right.
It can be that way in West Jackson, and our job is to get that done.
Good deal. And just a point of clarity, when you say JPD reports to Capitol Police, tell me what you mean by that.
No, I don't mean they report. JPD reports to Chief Wade, but okay. Capitol Police reports to the chief over there. I'm saying that all three entities have a smaller area to function in and force in so that we're not running over one another, but we're under one command center where we're looking at everything. See, I wanted to put a command center, and so did Sheriff Tyrone Lewis wanted to put a command center at the Metro Center. Well, we already had the highway patrol out there, and we could have put the JPD cameras and the command center out there, and Capitol Police and the Sheriff Department, and we would all be looking and talking at the same thing and sharing information, but not running over one another, because South Jackson's policing requires a different level of involvement than North Jackson.
Yes.
You got to be sensitized. You got to be sensitized to that. You got to have more patience and tolerance in South Jackson, even though you're going to be firm on crime, but you got to have more patience and tolerance in South Jackson than you do in North Jackson. And so we got to have a police department that understands community policing in a different way. And they got to be in there, and they got to be known in that environment, and they got to work their way through these children and these single moms, and we got to give them the assistance that they need to deal with this crime. Other than that, we got to bring a Job Corps center in here so that they got work experience. We got to put some money in their pockets. We got to bring a Job Corps center in here like they got down in Crystal Springs. One of your commenters said summer jobs. I'm talking about year-round jobs for our youth. I'm talking about after-school jobs for our youth. I'm heavily invested with them. I built a trail ride down on McDowell Road. I have thousands of them down there. I get an opportunity to talk to them, and they call me OG. You know, why are you out here this late, OG? Old school, and things of that nature and stuff like that. But I said, I'm out here because I'm trying to provide a space for you to be out here. So I had over 1,500 of them in the parking lot at Livingston Road at the Jackson State homecoming game. Got it on beautifully. And so we got to invest in them. See, I'm not going to chase our children from showing their cars, trying to be in the parking lot of Kroger. Right. I got to provide a space for them to do that, not running them away when I didn't provide nowhere for them to go. Boys want to drive fast. I got to have a place for them to drive fast. They got to have a racetrack. They got to have somewhere to build these cars and test these cars and compete with one another without me chasing them all over the city. They only do it because we haven't provided a designated area for them to do that. South Jackson is different.
Yeah, because we're afraid to do that, man. We're afraid to invest in these young people. So I like that. I want to get to our rapid round, and I will tell you these questions, they may not make any sense. They may provide some laughter. There may be a little gossip in it. It may be a multitude of things. Your first rapid fire question is, You showed up at a roast for Kim Wade as a fundraiser for him running for mayor, and now you're running for mayor. Make that make sense to me.
Because I wanted to get inside of his base. You know, he have a lot of white people over there with a lot of derogatory things to say about Jackson. I wanted to get in front of them and roast his butt, but make them understand that I am the kind of guy that's not afraid to come in your environment and talk about what's right for Jackson.
All right, good deal. Jamar and Dr. J, I don't know if we can get back to Jamar Scott's question because I want that to be in the rapid fire. Can we put Jamar Scott's post up? So here's Jamar's question. What are your action plans if not elected? There are 20 candidates with plans if they get elected, but what are your plans if you're not elected? How will you elevate Jackson if you're not in office? Not your past laurels, but future plans.
Well, I'll continue to work with the construction industry the way I have for the last 35, 40 years, and I'll continue to train young people. You know, we have a shortage of truck drivers. We have a shortage of track hoe operators, dozer operators, plumbers, and electricians. I'll continue to build and work in that area. I am an accountant by education, but I am also a construction CEO. So I'll continue to do the kinds of things and invest in our children the best I can.
All right, very good. So, Ms. Garrett, I got an interesting text message today. You know, for whatever reason, politics brings out the worst in people, right? It brings out the crazies, it brings out the foolishness, it brings out a bunch of stuff. But I got this text message, and it's a little too long to read, but I want to read parts of it because the text message favors you. But I want to know if you have any involvement in this whatsoever, because it's disparaging of other candidates, but it absolutely favors you. And I get it. We get these kinds of things all the time, and I often wonder if this happens in other cities because it makes good people not really want to run. But let me just read just a piece of it to you and get your thoughts on it. So it says, citizens, let's tell it like it is, shall we? And then it talks about Antar Lumumba, liar, thief, dopehead, and dealer, screws around on his wife. It goes, John Horn, half of his life in public office. Claim to fame is that he is a dope and whiskey head. And then it goes to Socrates Garrett, but I want to save yours for last. And so then there's David Archie, a fool's fool. His career in politics is over. Delanio Fontes has a law degree, but knows nothing about the law. Tim Henderson also was sneaked into this race by Lumumba. Friends at Jackson State has evidence that he's been in trouble. Many of these Republicans and independent candidates in the mayor's race may surprise you. Then it goes to Socrates Garrett. Socrates is a latecomer to the mayoral race. Some say he was forced to run because the city of Jackson cannot afford another mistake. Socrates is committed to and invested in the city of Jackson. Please, folk, let that sink in rather. But it's a ton of other great things about you, all of which I know to be absolutely true. But I gotta ask you, are you behind this text message?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know.
So are you just saying that to me, or is that the truth, man?
No, that is the truth. I have no idea who would have done that, but now I have a lot of friends and followers out there, Othor. I ran into an Uber driver just this evening, and she said, Socrates, what are you doing? So I know a lot of people, and I do enjoy a tremendous amount of support. And the momentum and that we are experiencing in this race has been heartwarming. And so I'm not surprised by that. The characterization of the other candidates speaks for itself. I won't get into that, but I'm very proud that someone thought enough of me to post those things.
All right, very good. So here's one. If by some chance you don't make it, right? You don't make the runoff, you don't make it. Is there a candidate that you would endorse?
Yes. It is. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that right now, Othor, but you did ask the question. There are a candidate there in Marcus Wallace. I believe that if I did not make this run, that I would have to take a look at his commitment and his desire and his passion to be in this office. He started running for mayor some 2-3 years ago. I looked at him very carefully. I didn't like the way he was polling at the time, and the time was running out. And I said, if he's not going to make it, I gotta. When you go to the Derby, you take more than one horse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so I would look seriously at that young man.
Very good, very good. Listen, this question.
Let me say this, Othor, to that point.
Yes, sir.
And if I am elected as mayor, I would also take a serious look at him as CAO.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's good, man. That's very good. That's very good. And I like your level of comfortability sharing that. That's very good. I want to go to this question about Siemens. And I heard them talk a little bit about it on last night. You've been an upfront, outstanding businessman in this city. Siemens seemingly did not work for the city. Siemens seemingly did not work for the city, but Siemens also made some African Americans wealthy in the city. Let's talk a little bit about your space in that arena of Siemens.
Yeah, Siemens was an unfortunate thing that happened. Some of the brightest minds that we had in the city, and I went on to say last night at that forum back in Mayor Johnson first had a decision to make. He either had to raise taxes on his citizens, which he did not want to do, and Siemens made a proposal that said that you're losing 50% of the water that you're producing through faulty distribution lines and or meters, whether they were hot wired or straight line, but people were not paying for the water they were using. So Siemens said that if people actually paid for the water that they were going to use, that the city would have enough money and he wouldn't have to raise taxes. Great concept. That concept had to be approved by the state of Mississippi because it was an energy performance contract, first of its kind. And so the mayor, all of the council people, but Harvey did not enter to the contract with Siemens. It happened under Lumumba.
Lumumba, right.
Okay, and so again, we got another mayor and we got another set of city council people who thought this was something that ought to be done. Wasn't unanimous in that council. It was not unanimous, but right. The mayor prevailed and they entered in a contract with Siemens. Great concept. Didn't work out. Mueller provided faulty meters. The meters didn't work. The city was in turmoil. City sued Siemens. Siemens came with a $90 million settlement to reimburse the city, a good return on what they had cost the city. I told the mayor last night I would not have spent $30 million on that in a firm in Birmingham when I have my own law, my legal team in Jackson. And when a company like Siemens, who does not want this negative publicity, is willing to settle, he could have gotten a Jackson State a freshman out of law school to settle with Siemens for $90 million. But instead, he chose to do it another way. Now, to the minority contractors that were involved in the project, I find this to be a travesty. They were named in that lawsuit. Lumumba should have never have done that. They should never been named in the lawsuit. You got a $100 billion company in Siemens. We got a company out of London, England that's running our wastewater treatment plant. We got Oracle down there that's running all of the programming of everything. The largest companies in the world. Did not name Oracle at all, but he did name 5 minority contractors. Now, they, in my opinion, were disserved. And I know they were disserved because Siemens came back and paid those contractors for having been listed in that lawsuit. I can't talk about it in disclosure how much and things of that nature, but they were all paid. Now, it didn't work out for the city. Now, the African Americans that made money, and I can tell you this, we're talking about 90 million to Siemens is petty cash. You know, Garrett Enterprises had a contract for $3 million in that entire project to provide some quality control issues for Siemens, not the city. And we told Siemens that those meters were faulty, that they were not, some were reading in gallons and some were reading in cubic feet. We told them that. And so we clearly wish that that had turned out well for everybody else. But $3 million will not make a company. And so minority.
It'll make mine.
Well, it won't make a company that is involved on a large scale. And so those brothers there, Tom Wallace, myself, James Coverton, Marcus Wallace, maybe a couple more that I'm forgetting about, were involved in that project. And had it worked, it would have been the example and the standard and the model that should be done here and other places. It just did not work.
Right. And I don't want to beat a dead horse to death, but I honestly believe, and I think you will recall this, when Jonathan Lee was on the campaign trail, he said on the campaign trail he would not sign that Siemens deal. And that's when he fell out with the black middle class, the black business class. That's when you got separated from him, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because
I thought he was right.
Of course he was right. Of course he was right. I have to give him that. But you got to remember that all of these mayors and all of these smart people we had, including those minority contractors that had an opportunity to make a living at a level they never made it before.
Right.
And here comes Jonathan Lee saying it's a bad idea. Yeah, he's going to get pushed back. And so, I
blame y'all for the condition of the city, because if we had Jonathan Lee, we wouldn't be where we are now.
If he had been mayor and had not signed that contract, things would have gone differently. But that was not the case. That was not the case.
Absolutely. So we're about running to the end. I want to thank you, man. I thank you for your honesty. You've gotten some positive feedback, especially about that centralized policing unit command center. That has never been talked about. That's a great idea. You're getting positive feedback from that. People are saying they like your honesty. Good answer to this question. Good answer to that question. So congratulations to you. I do, though, want to give you just a couple of minutes to give some closing thoughts.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. You have been a critic of mine over the years, and rightfully so, because you call it like you see it. And Tisdale said, whether it pinches or comforts. So I appreciate this opportunity. I just want to say to the citizens of Jackson, I've worked here in Jackson. I've invested in this city. I've tried to bring Ferry Street back. I tried to bring, I was past president of the Medical Mall Association business. I worked on the levy board. I was chairman of the Greater Jackson Chamber of Commerce. I put $10 million in the Metro Center trying to bring it back. I'm invested in Jackson. I have the experience. I worked all over the world, from Puerto Rico to Virgin Islands to Minot, North Dakota. In November, it's extremely cold there. And so I have the experience. I'm invested and I'm committed to Jackson. Jackson made me. It's time for me to give back. I did not move to Bridgewater or anywhere else in Madison County. I stayed right here. My business is in Ward 3. My home is in Ward 2. And I don't plan on going anywhere. We're going to fight to make Jackson the destination that it should be. I need your prayers. I need your support. I need your vote on April 1st. Vote Socrates Garrett for mayor of this great city. Thank you.
Sock, I got to tell you, this has been a very refreshing conversation. It's good to have you in this space, in this conversation. I wish other folk that I've been a critic of could take me as easily as you do and not fall out. Not fall out, not fire me, not fall out, and not push me to the curb. So thank you very much for being in this space, man. All the best to you, and we'll be talking to you again real soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. That's Socrates Garrett. You can look at his push card there on the screen. He is vying to become the next mayor of the great city of Jackson. And I got to tell you, I am absolutely just amazed in terms of how I think he's doing, how I think his ground game is going. I think that he's getting tremendous support, and it is absolutely refreshing to see that. So I would encourage you to please take some consideration into considering Socrates Garrett for the next mayor of the city of Jackson. Again, I'm telling you, we get to decide who the mayor is, right? Not money, not signs, not endorsements. We get to decide who the next mayor of this great city is. Jackson is not at a breaking point. If a certain person doesn't get elected, Jackson's not going to spill into the Pearl River, right? We're going to keep going. We're going to keep flourishing. We're going to keep thriving, and we're going to keep surviving. So your decision, though, is crucial, right? Your decision is crucial. And I would offer that you should also consider Socrates Garrett as the next mayor of the city of Jackson. We got just a couple of minutes, and I want to end the show tonight with the new feature, what's on Othor's mind, Othor thoughts, and all of that. And I gotta say this first. I just gotta say thank you. I thank you for all of you that reach out to make sure that I'm okay, right? When folks start attacking and making crazy posts, I just got to say to you, thank you. Thank you for making sure that I'm okay. I started getting screenshots, of folk making posts, about another show that's coming on. Thank you. I don't take that lightly. I appreciate your concern. Somebody said, stay safe in these streets. Somebody said, you must be saying something right because they're coming after you. So first of all, I'm not running for mayor, so I should never be the target, of all this ignorance, right? But that's just what it is. It's ignorance, right? And the trolls come out during election season because they are paid to do that. You can rest assured, right, that on this platform and those folk that we offer interviews to, it's a paid sponsorship. They don't pay the sponsor, they won't be on this platform, and that's it, right? That's it, right? So be aware of the ignorance. That kind of stuff make folk not even want to participate in this process. But I'm good. I appreciate you, and I must be stepping on some toes, doing something right, that I've become the center of attention, and I'm not a candidate. That's our broadcast for tonight from all of us here at the Othor Cain Show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this, and thank you for your support. Good night.
Showed me how to reach for the best.